Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. This is my disappointing decks, I guess you would say. Disappointing decks for 2016. Decks that either I couldn't connect with or I started working with and proved problematic for me. Usually the latter, actually. I start to use them, but some of them kind of out of the box, it was like, oh, whoops, or oh, or, just kind of wondering if I would be able to use them. But I'll start with this one, Psychic Tarot for the Heart by John Hollander. And this deck I initially loved, and there are things definitely to love about it. And nice sturdy box, guidebook, okay. The fact that it does have people of various skin colors to some extent, men and women. You've got these lovely things. I don't have any problem with the images. I like the images. But for some reason I feel like I get some of these cards, I feel like have reinterpreted the meaning to some extent because of a dislike of conflict or negativity. In other words, they're trying to put a certain slant on the card that ends up not working for me. And I don't know, just as the year has gone on, I've become, I still love some of the cards. Is that not wonderful? I love that. But, I don't know, for the Six of Swords to be healing begins, it's like, well, maybe grieving begins, normally it's about a retreat. I don't know, I just found, death being release as well, yes, but there's a darker aspect. I don't know. So I was looking actively when I got this deck. Isn't that beautiful? Bluebirds of Happiness there. For a love deck, a love-oriented deck. And in this, I still haven't found my love deck, I have to say, unless it's just the Vintage Wisdom deck, which was in one of my favorite decks of the year. But I wanted a romance-themed or relationship-themed deck. And all of them, I think, are in this pile of problematic decks for me. So maybe I'm just not a romance reader so much, which wouldn't bother me. But it was certainly worth a shot. And I would normally, seriously, I would be letting this deck go in a trade if it weren't for the fact, and I loved the fact that the chakras were involved here. The colors here are related to the chakras, the colored borders. I loved that. Initially, I loved that. But then when a heart chakra like this would come up, or any of the chakra cards essentially look like this, that kind of didn't work for me. It's like, give me something. Don't just give me the symbol for the chakra. Give me an image for the chakra, a situation. Even a more vibrant, abstract image would have worked for me. But what happened that makes this deck unrehomable is this. My dog, my young dog. Apparently a card flipped out of the deck. And the dog got a hold of it before I saw what was going on, and so I end up with a chewed a chewed love card of all things in my love deck, and so I replaced it with the heart chakra card. But I have to say, I have never used this for my own personal purpose. I'm not inclined to use it if somebody has a love question, and that probably just means that it's not the deck for me, and at the very least, I might as well get it out of my decks within hand's reach, because somehow it stopped working for me. And by that I mean not that I can't get good readings from it. It just, I feel like they're not giving me what I need. And since my pesky little dog, even though I've just played with her at length, is going to make a pest of herself, I am at the very least going to put her out of this room. That's my creature you're hearing there. That's my creature. Zippy. This isn't working for me. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm stepping on your nose. Jesse. Come on. That's great. Okay. I'm going to see if I can merely close the door. But if she is obnoxious outside of the door, then I'll have to go put her in her crate. I thought she'd settle down. So, this is the alphabet for lovers. I like the whimsical nature of the images for this group of cards. They're not quite a deck, but this group of cards. They're fun, they're weird, but they don't really tell you anything about, at least I can't, about what the card means. You know, what is that weird thing on her head? I don't know if it's cultural. This is a cards by a deck by a woman in Israel. But one of the things that I loved about it, and I don't dislike this deck, but I'm having huge difficulties figuring out how on earth to use it, even if you do it for, and I did use it when I was doing my daily loves, but it's problematic. One of the things I loved about it is that it is based on the Tree of Life. But I think one of the issues I had with it is that when I would pull a card and read it, it's very specific about the, I'm sorry you can't read that. I've got my webcam oriented toward mirrored because it's easier for me to do things that way. But you have a big thing here about if you are in a relationship, and most of these assume that you are in a relationship. That is the assumption, the initial assumption, is that you are attempting to manage or improve an existing relationship, which is not most of the people who are getting relationship readings, are people who are actually looking for a relationship, hoping for a relationship, or wanting to see how one is going to pan out. And so you get a lot of information here, but the biggest chunk of information is for people who are already in a pretty established relationship. It has a little bit of information for people who are single. Then it has an interesting, fairly extensive bit of information, paragraph of information on personality, what that card's would, what kind of personality that card would represent, and then it has advice. So I've had trouble, and I feel at times I've pulled something when people are inquiring about a relationship, and I've read them, the relationship aspect, and these are people who have been in relationships, and felt like it was maybe too much. Not giving people perhaps the likely future. I don't know. I've just had a problem with it. I feel bad about it. I feel like it's not that it's there's nothing wrong with it, that maybe it's too complicated in one respect, and too simple in another. It's also, because it's so in-depth on an individual card, you can't really do a spread of these. Otherwise you get contradictions. One is a complete relationship. So it's not like you can get different aspects of this relationship by pulling another card. That won't happen. This is only this relationship. This is only this relationship. So it's really kind of only pulling one card. And yeah. So I haven't figured out, and again, I can't really give it to somebody else because I have mangled the cards. They didn't come bent like this, but because I felt like the only way to use them, they were not very good at shuffling, was to have them in a bag, such as this. Do I have any other? There's more to them. There's more of them. Was to have them in a bag and do a blind draw, shuffle them up. And they didn't shuffle up well when they were flat, so I gave them that little crease. So, yes, it's just turned out so promising. It would almost be good for it to be a collective deck for a family or a group of people. It could potentially, I suppose, be a good deck for understanding the personalities of coworkers. I hadn't thought of that previously, so maybe I need to revisit some of these decks. But, yeah, problematic deck that I spent a fair amount of money on, and now I just don't know how to use it. It's not proving very usable to me. There is the wonderfully snarky Romantic Tarot. Again, another attempt at a love deck. And I know of some that I need to get. I know I have some on my wish list, things that I would like to get that will replace some of these that are not working. And I'm not going to get rid of this deck. In fact, I am going to try to use it for other purposes. But it is snarky. It is, it takes very European. I actually did 5 different videos that are like 40 minutes to an hour each, most of them, on each of the suits in here, going through each of the cards because they are so different or take a very different tack on the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And that isn't what I thought I was getting. Some of them are fairly traditional. I could see that being traditional. What is that? The Nine of Wands. That's really quite different with the child there. Some of the major arcana. There's our Queen of Swords, Talk about an attitude. And I've got all my queens here. Lovely Devil cards. Some of them are great. I love that Devil card. But, like the whole suit of cups is not as you would expect in a love deck about love, about emotions. They're about overindulgence. They're more literally the whole notion of cups. It's how you nurture yourself. So it's about overindulgence, indulging yourself in drink, how indulgence enters into relationships. The suit of, how is this for temperance? And it's just amusing that in the background you actually have an image from the temperance card. But there it is, drinking up. She's letting, I don't know. This, which you have 5 of Pentacles, and ends up looking like she's selling herself. Yeah, so just not, what was I thinking? Not the Pentacles. The Swords end up being a card of noble and pure love, as opposed to a card of cards of conflict. The Wands. Where did it go? The Wands are in large parts, or frequently, cards about lust, and particularly how the male member comes into it. And it kind of represents men in general. The suit of cups, or suit of wands, does. So there you go. I'm not giving up on this deck, because, as I said, I am wondering if it can be used for general readings. Things that have very little to do with romantic relationships. I mean, maybe it could be used even for work-related relationship, or related relationships. I don't know. I'm not giving up on it yet. There are aspects of it I like, but I wanted something, I think, positive that wasn't all positive. Positive that didn't deny that sometimes you need to just be told that you're in a bad relationship, You need to let it go. There's too much conflict, whatever the message may be. Alright, so the next 2 decks among those that have proven to be, that have surprised me, that I haven't connected with them more than I had hoped. And so this is the Voyager Tarot. Again, I haven't given up on the Voyager Tarot. And a large part of the reason I got the Voyager Tarot is because I do love collage. I just do. And so that part of the images appealed to me and fascinated me. But what I've discovered is that some people in their tarot wisdom, when they would review this deck after getting it, would say that they just immediately, they would say, there's too much on the card, I can't take it all in, or it's distracting, whatever the case may be, and they would kind of never use it. They would recognize that right away. I did not recognize that right away, and I went into the trouble, because these were large cards, of trimming them, because I really didn't feel like I could work with them, and trimming them and even edging them in this dark. So they're now, as far as I'm concerned, and I took off, except for the numbers, I took off the tarot references, which I think that they had. I don't even remember anymore. And have just, so I put a lot of work into these cards, actually, because I had to edge them twice in order to get it really as dark as I wanted it. But now when I've started to read with them more, I find that, in fact, they do have too much. I'm wanting to look at every nuance, every image in the card for meaning, or lead whoever I'm reading for through all of the different images. And I think that they end up being a confusing conglomeration of images. And I don't know if I need to spend a little bit more time with them. Another issue with this deck is that it is Thoth-based. It's based on the Thoth system, which I'm not that familiar with, and I didn't realize that until that it was more Thoth-oriented until I got it. So yeah, so I'm not sure what quite to do with my Voyager Tarot. Did I just tell you that this was the Voyager Tarot? This is the Voyager Tarot. And I'm just not sure. And I realized he wanted to do crystals, but why don't you give me a situation for delusion? Why do you give me crystals for delusion? Even if this is the suit of crystals. It's supposed to be mental energy. You know, there are some fantastic images. You know? Queen of Swords there. This also was a beautiful, wonderful image. But what's it about? You know, I haven't given up on this. I know that this deck, that the maker of this deck, used it quite a bit in the world of business. And so I might limit it to that kind of reading. I might have to just ignore some of the images on the cards. I'm not sure what. Like I said, I'm not willing to give up on it yet. But I'm not so sure that it's going to be... I was hoping that it would be a completely versatile deck that could be used for anything, like the good old tarot. The good old Rider-Waite-Smith tarot can be used for just about anything, much as we like to look for other decks or that. So I was looking for something that had more engaging images than the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but could also be used in a very wide-ranging way. And again, I have an interest, an enjoyment, I would say, of making collage, an interest in collage art, and so that drew me to it. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I will end up keeping that deck. I haven't given up on it, but I'm not sure. Now the last one, which I haven't had for very long, so I haven't given it a true run, is the Tarot of the Magical Forest. Tarot. And I didn't get this for a while. I resisted it, but I would see these amusing, whimsical to me images, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I have got to get that. And as you may have learned elsewhere, I've gotten kind of a sucker for animals. And so I thought, yeah, I've got to get this. It is just so... I'm not even a cute person, but it just... I don't know. Something about it amused me. But the odd thing is that when I work with this deck, there's something about it that feels dark to me. I don't know if it's because the images are simplified to some extent. Like, why isn't there more to this 10? There's a little... Well, they do have an animal, but they don't have the old person. You know, this is just too funny. It's just too funny. And yet, you know, our knight in this particular thing looks glum. The steed looks excited. The rider looks glum. I don't know. Again, this is one I haven't completely given up on, but I find myself thinking about it. Should I use that deck? And then part of me just goes, no. And to me, there's just a dark cast to these. I'm not sure if it's coming through on the webcam, but there's something dark about it. I don't know. But isn't that cute? So there's this back and forth that maybe isn't quite working, and that the fact that the images, and it's, you know, and I say that the images don't have very much on them, but if you watch my favorite decks of 2016, I can have that same criticism of the Prairie Tarot, and yet the Prairie Tarot works for me. So I really can't use it as a valid criticism, because sometimes that it works for me. So I don't know. But I may eventually end up trading this. Isn't that amusing? You've got these two chained poodles down there. And here's the death. No, it's the devil. The devil card. So yeah. Gotta love the little bat. Gotta love the little bat. Looks like it's reading a book. The frog waiting for the ship to come in. So, I mean, you look at these images and they're just cute, amusing, whimsical. Peggy. And all those things that should make it a good usable deck. Because it is very, very, very close to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. You know, it can be accused of being a clone. But yeah, I'm having a hard time wanting to bring it out and use it. And I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means about its fate with me. If we will be able to eventually click or not. I think one of the problems, no, I can't say that. I think I just don't understand. I'm not sure what it is about this deck. How could it not be working for me? But it isn't. I love the backing. Love that backing. Maybe I'll have to force myself to use it some more and just get over my whatever it is I'm feeling about it. I'm not even sure. It's the sort of deck that I would fear that I would let it go and then I would want it back. With my middle-aged memory issues, I would probably let it go and then a couple of years later get it without realizing that I'd had it before and let it go. So there you go. Those are my disappointing deck purchases for 2016. Decks that just I haven't been able to. Well, they weren't the love affair I was hoping for, and for the most part, or they were not as useful as I was hoping that they would be, and I don't say I regret getting them, because even the ones that have to do with relationships and romance, now I know. Now I've gotten those decks and they haven't worked, and so I'm not wondering if they're the deck I should have gotten, so to speak. And there are many other, well, not many, but there are a number of other romance-oriented, relationship-oriented decks, and so you'll probably see me getting them in the coming year. I did get a lot of decks this year, simply because I was doing the readings on YouTube here, and I've been doing private readings for other people, and so I've wanted to explore the different energies of different decks for different kinds of spreads, and to give people options when they come to me for readings. I now feel like I have a pretty broad range of decks at this point, and so I won't be getting nearly as many in 2017. I might supplement a little bit, but not nearly as much as I did in 2016. Alright, so that's that. Feel free to leave any comments, and yeah, we'd love to hear if you're also a reader about what decks disappointed you, or what decks particularly delighted you or were useful to you in 2016. Alrighty, everybody, take care.